If I am on mute, unmute my mic. Center that shot. Veronica, excuse me, Veronica. Okay. We're live, so we're going through some stuff, and she's in a teaching moment, and we're live. Cool. Good afternoon. This is Nat Wood. This is Nat Wood. This is live TV, so anything can happen. If you're anywhere in the United States of America, you are aware of the problems and controversies that relate between Africa, specifically Libya at this time, but Africa, the Middle East, and the United States of America. It is my pleasure, and I've told my audience that we were going to address these issues in the weeks to come, and I am pleased to tell you that I have a tremendous activist seated at my right, your left if you're watching the TV. She is an earth disturber of the first degree. She's a member of the December 12th movement, Amadi, and we're going to talk about the World Conference Against Racism, specifically the one that was held in Durban in 2001, and a little bit about the other two that arose, or the reflection of the first one. We're going to talk about one of the most in the front issues in media today. That's the subsequent assassination of Muammar Gaddafi and what that means both to the people of Africa and America. And with that, I just want to say that I am just so pleased to have this lady at my side, and hopefully we'll have a good show.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and you look very dapper. I'm glad to be here. I just wanted, well, my name is Amadi. I'm with the December 12th movement, and I just wanted to give just a little bit of history in terms of the December 12th, very briefly. We began, it's called December 12th because on December 12th, 1987, we formed a coalition that had a statewide protest against racism, and it incorporated many different issues. Tawana Borley was one of them. Oh, okay. You know,
you anticipated my question. I was going to ask what was so special about '87.
Well, there's a lot, just a lot of things happening, and also at one point, in the prisons upstate, we got a phone call from one of our friends upstate where her son had been locked up, and he told us that the prison guards were torturing young black and Latino men in the jails. Like they were stripping them, putting them out in the freezing cold, putting, you know, water hoses on them, putting them out in the cold, and, you know, these kind of just torture, the same kind of torture that you'll see in Iraq was happening, or in Guantanamo was happening in these prisons. And a lot of those folks that are in Guantanamo or were in Guantanamo doing that came out of these prisons. They were corrections officers, you know. So that's been happening in the United States forever. So that, and amongst other things, the police brutality, the corruption that was happening in our communities, the drugs, the crack, cocaine that was devastating our communities, that was brought into the community by police officers, and it was exposed in that way. So that it was a massive rally. Yeah, and
as we're shooting this show today, 8 officers were arrested for selling guns, running guns. Right.
And it's a old story, and it's always, they can go on for years and years and years in the black community, because this is a training ground for that kind of corruption. They don't do it in white communities or on Wall Street. Whatever kind of corruption happens generally happens in our communities, and we're exploited and we're railroaded into jail. And we remember Larry Davis, and Larry Davis was actually working for the police, and then they came after him.
Why do you think we're exploited? Why specifically us?
I think that it's a process. It's connected to our history here in slavery, our enslavement, our oppression and exploitation, that it's easier to deal with someone who is neglected by the not only just schools and what have you, but just the whole society has put us down at the bottom of the ladder.
Having no value, for lack of a better.
Yeah, well, that they haven't put a value on us, you know.
I think that they have been so effective at devaluing us that we devalue us. I think that if we gave ourselves more value, we would put them in a more defensive mode than they have been. I think that that's not to say all of us devalue us, but far too many of us value us and believe in us.
Right.
And if we could address that issue on a more whole scale,
right,
then we would be like. Yeah.
And it's tied to not only how we feel about each other, but it's economic, it's political, it's power, it's power relationships.
Correct. I think that's what they use specifically to devalue us. What we use to devalue us, we see value in economics and money, and we have been locked out of that system. Black people tend to, black people all over the planet, in Africa and all over the diaspora,
yes,
are basically the lowest members of the caste system, the economic caste system. I won't even say class, because when a specific group is always at the end of the class system, that's no longer a class system, that's a caste.
Right.
You know, if it was just class, then black people would have 9% unemployment like white people.
Right.
And
instead of 50.
Right, instead of 50, you know, and it's systemic. It's always the darker you are, you know, by and large, you know, the statistics bear out that the darker you are, the worse you do.
Well, that has been because, well, I mean, we can look at it as far as the development of societies and the development of capitalism and the development, you know, of relationships, economic relationships between working people and people who owns the means of productions and distribution. You know, so, and we can make an analysis of that in Europe. We can make an analysis of that in Africa. We can make an analysis of colonialism. But all these are power economic relationships. When we went to Durban in 2001 to deal with the World Conference Against Racism, we went with an agenda that had 3 points. One was the economic basis of racism, that the fundamental basis of racism is economic, period. And we said that because of that, there has to be reparations, you know, and we said that also we were dealing with colonialism, you know, to make that also a part of the whole packet of being a crime against humanity, that slavery, colonialism, crimes against humanity, particularly affecting African people, and that therefore we need compensation. If they need to repair the damage that they've done. You know, a lot of people look at reparations like it's a check, but it means repair, and the damage has to be repaired. And we are the ones who decide how that's repaired.
Hold up. Even if you, I don't even see the relevance of downplaying a check.
No,
you
because
did something to me. I mean,
yeah, but then
you know, we have lawyers every day. We have corporations in court every day. You know, fighting over who did what, because whoever.
No, I'm not downplaying it. But all I'm saying is this:
a lot of people do that, and they come up with all sorts of goofy things. As a way to maintain the system of white supremacy.
But listen to this, I'm saying that even if we look at the economic crisis that we're in right now, that the money is devalued, you know what I mean, the euro is devalued. If we said we want land, we want, you know, state-of-the-art hospitals and, you know, physical things, massive tracts of land, you know, so that we can build on our own and not only get financial reparations, but also get land and get resources and, you know, and develop our own communities like that and control and own our own communities, whereas we're not paying a mortgage or paying rent, that we can talk about this is our community and we're going to build it like we want it, you know.
Okay, so some of the issues that were addressed in Durban in 2001 was racism, children of the Ma'afa being this being a crime against humanity as opposed to just an American phenomenon.
Right. And the important thing, and the important thing about the crime against humanity is there's no statute of limitations on that.
Okay.
So I mean, it was fundamental that we had to have that in the document coming out of Durban, and that was a great victory for us because it's in the document, and compensation is in the document. So it's a very strong, it was a tremendous conference. The African people from the Caribbean, from Africa, we brought our delegation. We had 400 people from the United States. So I mean, we were like the largest delegation there, and we spent our time lobbying those heads of those states that can vote, because we are an NGO, but we were lobbying and pushing it and pushing those 3 issues until the very last minute, till like 1 o'clock in the morning. They didn't actually finish the document on the last day. So it was a very strong document, and from that day forward, Europe, the United States walked out of the conference.
I was going to ask you about that, but I figured I'd let you keep talking. I was going to ask you about that because Europe, the United States and Israel walked out.
Right. But they were trying to make it seem as if it wasn't about racism. It's a world conference against racism. Right. And they were trying to make it a non-African issue, that it was viewed as an attack on Israel.
Right, picking on Israel.
You know, instead of looking at the totality of what racism is, that even though the Palestinian people suffer greatly from Zionism, and many equate Zionism with racism in terms of just the treatment of people, the Palestinian people, and the occupation of their land, but the broader issue was not addressed.
If memory serves me, they tried to divide the issue of racism even as it relates to African people. That we were looking at racism in terms of the Middle Passage and African Americans, but millions of people, millions of Africans, so it seemed as though there was an attempt to divide the loyalties even among Africans in this World Conference Against Racism.
Right.
Am I?
Yeah, of course. That's why we have to know our own history. You know what I mean? And we have to be very concrete about the transatlantic slave trade and what they did and where people were dropped off in different places during that whole triangle, going from Africa to Europe to United States. So even dropping some in Brazil. Right. So I mean, and it's very important that people understand that the economy of the slave trade was based. It was a global. Correct. It was a global economic trade system. So I mean, it was one of the thrusts of imperialism. Right. Right. So I mean, that's how Europe actually. I mean, people even say that it's just that people in the diaspora who were taken out that should get reparations, but that's not so, because they colonized Africa. They literally broke it up.
Colonizing Africa.
Yes.
And again, it's only an hour show, and I could probably talk to you a week and still go home and have a bunch of stuff I should have asked you. But they're still colonizing Africa. When you look at the diamond markets, the resources of Africa and the things that are going on with Africa, the struggle. even for identity, to try to identify Northern Africa as the Middle East.
Right.
Okay, it's the Lord. They try to say that Egypt is the Middle East.
Yeah, try to create a whole other continent.
The Middle East, right?
Yeah.
You know, and they're both Northern Africa.
Right, and Europe is not really a continent,
Correct.
you know. So we want to really get technical.
Correct.
But you know, I mean, that's when I'm saying we need to know our own history and we define for ourselves what is ours, you know, and what we need to do to move forward. We make those definitions just like they do, and they lie half the time, you know, that they define things and they'll change things. They'll change Egypt into the Middle East or whatever.
Right. Whatever that means. I don't even know what that means.
Right, and why?
Middle East.
You know,
I have no idea what that means.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's
I want you to go east. How far? The middle.
Yeah. Because that's the closest. That's the part that's closest to Europe, and they want to control that whole Mediterranean basin, you know, between Africa and Europe. So they'll create that division between the North and the South, Sub-Saharan Africa.
Right.
You know.
Right.
You know.
Now, you talked about a couple of things happened that sort of distracted the World Conference in 2001. One of the things that sort of knocked it off of the media, because it was like red hot, was like, I think 2 days later 9/11 hit.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
So that put everybody in a whole different type of vibe. And
you couldn't even you couldn't get anywhere with it. I mean, as tremendous as it was the week before, a couple of days later, it's like
and it was tremendous. It was tremendous. It was this close to dominating the dialogue.
It was very historic.
Right.
Very historic. In terms of African people, the unity that was in that conference, I think, was unsurpassed. I mean, it was tremendous unity and a real fight. And some people we had to really, you know, have their back so they stay fighting, you know, and because what they call WEGO, the Western European and Others group, you know, was really trying to get at those smaller nations or what they deemed to be weaker nations, and they wanted to manipulate them, but they stood their ground, and African people from all over from the Caribbean just stood strong, and it was tremendous, and it was a tremendous victory for us. And so after we came back and 9/11 happened, we basically had to regroup, and we really couldn't get our footing until the following year. And we organized the first national rally in Washington, D.C. for reparations, you know, which was another historic event.
I was not privileged to go, but I was privileged in that Nana Camille Yarborough ran the Hour DVD on her show of Durban 2001, and it was incredible. It was incredible. Even 10 years later, when I'm looking at this, I'm like, wow. You know.
It's inspirational, you know.
Correct.
To everyone we've shown it all around the country, you know, and it's just people see it and they go, wow, and they say, and they look at us, and we're like on the corner in Harlem in a rally, and then down, you know, wherever else, but then we're in South Africa on this World Conference stage, and it's the same us, the same fight, you know what I mean? So that makes them know that they can do it too, that people like us can go and make a real difference if we're committed to what we're doing.
But a lot of that is being able to seek out information, think critically, and have a vision of how you want the future. So many of us, first of all, we have no vision. We're intimidated by the prospects of learning about ourselves because we have been taught that everything about us is negative and inferior. So we don't seek out the knowledge. We have no vision of the future, and it is literally devastating to us in the present
Absolutely.
So you have to actually change your way of thinking before you can get your feet to move.
Yeah, it's a re-education process, and a lot of it is because many of us work. And as working class people, we don't spend a lot of time home raising our children, so we send them out to these schools and or home education. What do they call it? Homeschooling.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And so we send them out to a school that doesn't even care about them, and they're tracked to prison, and prison is a industry. Here.
Right.
That's
well, we're a cash cow. We're a cash cow. I mean, we're a cash cow in the prison system. We're a cash cow in the foster care system.
And I've always been from the time we got here.
Right. Now, one of the things, and like I said, this is going to be a quick hour with you, I know. But a couple of things that the December 12th movement has been heavily involved in is Africa itself, the state of the African nation, and they've been very supportive of two people who inspire a lot, who have inspired a lot of debate and arguments. That is Muammar Gaddafi and Robert Mugabe.
Right.
As everyone knows, if you don't know that they killed, murdered, assassinated, however you want to term it, Muammar Gaddafi, then you probably will never know because they executed.
And I think that you're talking about critical thinking. If you know that you've been attacked by this person forever, since you got to the United States, since they went to Africa, you've been attacked yourself, your family, you know, what makes you think that what they're doing in Africa now would benefit Africans? You know what I mean? Like, the attack on President Mugabe is because he dared to take the land back from colonizers. That after the armed struggle in Zimbabwe, which was just 1980 when they won, you know, and they still didn't get their land back. And the people said, look, we didn't fight a war and die so they can keep our land and we just get a flag or a president, you know. We want our land. And so
you're basically talking economics. It's like who got the money?
And the resources of the land, the economics, the money is backed by the resources of what you have, you know, the gold and diamonds, the minerals and all these things that are in Africa, and who controls that, right. And up until 96 or 97, the colonizers still controlled it until
a handful of people controlled all the money, and all the bombs and guns were trained at anyone who contradicted that theory.
Right. And so you know if they attack President Mugabe, it's because they're losing something and African people are gaining something. They were gaining their nation. And so then he's a pariah. He's a Hitler. Yeah, Hitler, dictator.
Black Hitler, I like that. That's deep.
Yeah,
that's deep.
It is, and you see the same thing they do all over the world. They did it to Gaddafi last year.
They even called Obama Black Hitler, and he kisses their butt all across the nation. I've never seen it, you know. If he was Hitler, he'd kill you all. He was kissing your butt all over the place, you know.
And it's just he
just wants to be loved by you.
He's doing all that he can. But the thing is, we have to really start looking out for ourselves politically and economically, and that's what when we view the attack on leadership that takes a step towards self-determination, and we look at.
Well, that is true. That is true, and it doesn't even have to be this big, major, you know, $450 billion worth of oil. It could be something as simple as selling CDs on the street, or you know, anything. It seems like anything that we do to make money, independent of them, makes us very, very bad.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I mean,
do we have to be tied to their industry?
correct,
you know?
correct.
And we can
They
not
just
only
think they own us. I think, you know, they really take it personal when, you know, when we don't invite them to the conversation. Right, you know,
and why can't we be friends?
Right,
And why do you have to look it back that way?
Right,
you have to look forward.
Right. Why does there have to be a black church? You know, that's reverse
Or why do you keep
racism.
talking about reparations? You know?
Right.
I didn't enslave you, but
Right,
they benefit.
Right.
They benefit from it. They don't even realize how much every bank, every insurance company, every institution in this country is tied to the transatlantic slave trade. Everything, bar none.
Correct.
All of them.
Correct.
You know? And that's when we talk about reparations. We're not talking about just that, but the ongoing economic that they got.
It's a road unbroken.
Right.
I mean, if there was, in order for something to be history, it has to stop.
Right.
You know, and I mean, it's just taking on different manifestations. It's gone from captivity. I don't even like to use the word slavery because slavery is more a state of mind. This was forced captivity. This was you have to mentally acquiesce to be a slave.
Right.
You know, but anyone can be overpowered. Right. Anybody can be captured. Anybody can be beaten. I don't care how bad you are, how many Sylvester Stallone movies you see. Anybody can be taken prisoner and subjugated to all sorts of stuff. But in point of fact, there is no evidence that we have ever acquiesced to this condition. Right, always.
And we were part of the organizing for the reparations lawsuit against the corporations. You know, our attorney Roger Webb and a number of different attorneys.
A lot of people don't realize that most of the major banks and financial institutions started because of their affiliation with the transatlantic slave, not you know, coincidentally. You know.
I mean, and Aetna Insurance Company was one of the principal ones that they literally had taken out insurance policies on slaves, so that if they got beat to death, that they would somehow the person who beat them to death would get compensated. They would go get another one. You know, so I mean, so they paid in these insurance policies, and we had gotten a copy of one of them. I should have brought it. We could have put it on the screen, but it's literally an insurance policy on your slave. You know, and they did that for 200 years. J.P. Morgan Chase. You know, we can go to the railroads. CSX was involved in all that. I mean, it's just a myriad of different industries developed through that process of slavery. Tobacco, cotton, textiles,
it's
everything.
interesting that they didn't even wait for him to die. The moment that they issued out a report that Gaddafi's forces had been overrun, defeated, for lack of a better term, the next day, CNBC was talking about how they were going to split up the money.
They were doing that all along.
I mean, I was like, deep. I was like, wow. Is he gone? Is he gone? He can't come back. Well, we're going to, you know, pump up the oil and produce $450 billion worth of.
And one error that they always make is they always think, like, if you cut off the head, the snake dies, as if those 4 to 6 million people would do anything they say. You know what I mean? Like, there's not going to be.
Even if you go under the premise, and I don't see this as logical, because just from and I was talking about this in the studio. I mean, the control room. I don't even see this as logical, because even if you think of Gaddafi as some sort of snake, you've cut off the head of a snake and replaced it with a fire-breathing dragon. For better or worse, and there's so many. I think that most of the people who are dead set against Gaddafi have no concept of anything that's going on in Libya. They don't know the forces that are against Gaddafi. They say his people. He just killed his people. Like, he walked up and they was watching TV and he said, "Knock, look there, Gaddafi," and just shot him in the head.
And they never come with any kind of evidence. They just say it. You know, like Goebbels did in with Hitler. If you tell a lie that often and loud enough and often enough, people will believe you. But the concrete things that Colonel Gaddafi did do in Africa is that he funded a satellite so that television, cell phones,
he was very instrumental in facilitating a united Africa.
And that hurt Europe economically because they were charging African
and Israel said that they viewed this as a threat to the security of Israel. A united, they said definitively that they viewed a united Africa as a threat to the security of Israel. There's a lot of things that Gaddafi did that were not just revolutionary, but just like brilliant from an economic standpoint.
I mean, and instead of going to the IMF, he facilitated the African Development Bank and was loaning African nations money. You know, just a lot of things, and just the AU, the African Union, just the political coming together. He was a threat in that way in making Africa strong.
And they were also very selective in the time span of. They keep saying that he was there for 42 years, and it's been 42 years of hell. You know, but wait a minute. He got there at because of a revolution against Italy, and Italy had slaughtered like a third of the people for other people's money and whatnot. But they never mention that at all. They never bring in what. Never. We have a phone call, so we're gonna take this phone call and see what the caller has to say. Hi, caller, you're on the air.
Hello.
Yep, you're on.
I was listening to y'all talk and whatnot. It's very enlightening what y'all was talking about, Libya. And I'm just curious, you know, like, it's always been, ever since I've basically had the scales removed from my eyes, I begin to see that, you know, the color of my skin was basically a subtext to a lot of the treatments I was going through. That I basically hooked it up to economics, because I didn't think they would just be as nasty and evil, just be nasty and evil. I was sure there was something more to it. At least that's what I wanted to believe. And y'all basically confirmed it. And you know, like I've been talking ever since this Occupy Wall Street thing. I've been talking to brothers and whatnot, and you know, they always want to like throw it off on, you know, like we've been telling white folks this all the time. Now this is their problem, and so on and so forth. But you know, I'm tempted to do it myself. But I'm just curious, why isn't there an Occupy 125th Street? You know what I'm saying? Because they trying to get us up out of here. We done got comfortable and all. You know what I'm saying? And even though it's not necessarily historically black, shoot, we done spilled blood here and whatnot. We might as well try put a stake out somewhere and whatnot. And it seems like this bus called history is passing us by again, and we're basically twiddling our thumbs besides y'all and whatnot. And I'm just like, you know, we would start getting more activated and politically and whatnot, and stop all this killing each other's senses. Because something's about to jump off big, and if you're worried about the length of your pants and who's on the top 10 and all this other stuff, we're gonna be left behind.
That's true.
And that assessment that it's now white folks and it's a white folks problem is kind of avoiding the issue, because in point of fact, if white folks, quote unquote white folks, were going through the economic conditions that black people are in this country, they wouldn't be in America. They'd have burned this sucker to the ground. There's no way that white folks would be looking at 50% unemployment, 35% unemployment. The 8% unemployment, they want to drag everybody out and kill them, and having demonstrations all over the place. And in point of fact,
what would you think of Occupy Harlem, though?
I'm down with that.
I think we should have occupied in a lot of ways. I think that we need to be far more forward-thinking, far more aggressive in the way that we do things, that whether or not you acknowledge the fact that there's a train coming at you, or whether or not you acknowledge that you are in a war zone, is irrelevant if you're in a war zone. And we are still having babies. We needed to have led this movement. We needed to make the first move. We need to get involved in every single thing we can in terms of making Wall Street understand, of making everything that this young lady said is actually on point. You need a world conference against racism. You need reparations on the agenda. You need Wall Street on the agenda.
And that's our connection to Wall Street.
Correct.
Because Wall Street was built on slave labor. That the whole
all of those
New York
people,
City,
all of those terms are on top of us.
They're
on top of us.
So the thing is, it's like we do make the connections, but I don't buy into we're not doing anything. We've had many demonstrations down in Wall Street.
Right.
Did anybody stay there for a month?
Right.
Or no? If my view is, if black people went down there, it was down there 3 days, they would have had the National Guard.
Right.
But because of it's not like that. Those are rich people's children.
And
really.
see, I think of this as a continuing struggle, a struggle that will go on until there is no more planet. We have hit a snag, but we've hit a few snags along the way, and we keep coming back. And
but you know what Wall Street reminds me of? It reminds me of during the Freedom Rides, and Bob Moses took college students, young white college students from all over the country. Took them down to South, and their parents were going crazy. You know what I mean?
It's
very similar.
Calls, but,
it's very similar to what's happening in Wall Street.
All right. Caller, you're on the air.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Oh, brother, it's a beautiful show. And it's nice to have the sister there expounding on these deep matters.
She's deep.
That deal with us indigenous people. You know, all I want to say, I won't ramble too long. I just want to say the only way that we, people of color, indigenous people all over the globe, we simply need to stop participating with the system that is enshackling us. Every time we sign something, every time we sign a contract, every time we do that, we can't turn around and tell that beast to give us justice. Do you follow what I'm saying, sister and brother? So we sign all these contracts in our lives, and now we run to them and say, you're doing me wrong. And we didn't read the contract of whatever we do. Even if it's birth giving, even if it's credit card. See, we don't read the contract. We don't know contract.
Even if it's taking out a mortgage.
And we don't go into the courtroom and unravel the courtroom. So these are our misgivings. We don't dissect and unlock the keys to the game in the courtroom. So now the courtroom governs everything. So when we walk into the courtroom, we don't disbar nobody. So you know, I'll break it down, but I think we need to take a look at those things on what we keep participating in. How do you protest, you know, on the street when you're using and you texting and you keep feeding the machine and you keep your money in the banks and you keep buying all your poison and you take your vaccinations, you do all that and you go to the hospitals and sign over to them too. So sister, you see what I'm saying? It's a big pill to swallow, but we got to swallow it and get to some research. Peace and love.
Thank you, brother. We're going to take another call. We'll, hopefully we'll have enough time so you can...
no, I need to. He said it.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, is it me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to actually respond to the brother who was mentioning about why isn't there an occupied Harlem. As a matter, Nellie Bailey is kicking off a meeting on Friday at 6 p.m. St. Philip's Church on the 134th for Harlem.
134th and what?
I'm not sure, but it's St. Philip's Church.
Okay.
For that.
Okay.
All right. That's it. Okay, take care.
Thank you. Do we have another call? I think we lost it.
Hello?
No. Oh, no. Okay. You're on, caller.
I love your show. I just wanted to say, let me turn this TV down. I love your show. I just wanted to say, what I'm hearing is like the link, the gap between where we want to go and where we are. And through my research, my little bit of research, I found that in order to clear that junk, we need Africa. And I think that's the thing that we always forget. Wall Street will be at our beck and call, wrapped around our finger if we have business interests tied up with Africa and bring them in to open up factories in Harlem, in Brooklyn. We don't have to wait. We don't have to, you know, I mean, protest is good. You need that. But the solution is all right there. I mean, I started to trace the Gullah and the Geechee from Africa, from the slavery back to the Mali Empire, Sundiata Keita, the Dogon, back across the Chad, back to the Nile Valley, back to the pyramids. It's all there. It's, you know, it's laid out. It's not like we need to invent some new thing. All we need to do is stop these brothers who are Brooklyn N-words are better than Harlem N-words. You know, we need to get beyond that, reconnect with who we are as far as our culture is concerned, and then we can gain the respect of the people in Africa who have the money, who will come and invest in our communities. Once we do that, Wall Street is going to come at our beck and call. We will control Wall Street, you know. So, I mean, I don't want to sound Pollyanna, and I don't want to make it sound like it's so easy to do, but because it takes a cult and a conspiracy, basically, you know what I'm saying? And the root of it is re-identifying, understanding that the Mali Empire was like the federal government and the rest of West Africa were like the states. And the reason you see all this turmoil now is because the head was basically taken out and brought to North America and South America and Brazil, and that's us, you know. And in order to bring that all back together and reconstitute the body, you have to wake up the head.
All right, brother. I got what you're saying. I want to give my guests a little chance to respond, but I appreciate where you're coming from 1,000-fold. Right. One of the things I like to say before I give her an opportunity is that, for better or for worse, we, people of color, we African people who were born in America, we were born in Frankenstein's brain, so we are infinitely well positioned to give him a migraine. We just have not concentrated on being effective in those things that we have going for us. Again, we've hit a bump in the road, but I don't want to get too preachy. I want to kick it off to Amadi.
The brother is absolutely right. We do need to make stronger connections to Africa and be more independent in our economic and political thought. And part of that is a more independent politically and economic Africa. You know what I mean? In the African Union. An example is that it's like even before Libya, Cote d'Ivoire. You know, President Bao. I'm sorry, Bao. I'm not pronouncing it. But anyway, he was trying to cut ties with France, and he was trying to their money was literally taken to French banks, then France would take half of it and give them half back and say that this is ours and that's yours. I mean, that's how entrenched the economic system was with France. And he was trying to stop that relationship. That's why they moved on him. I mean, those kind of things, because they don't move just by saying, oh, you can't do that. They will drop bombs and they will, you know, kidnap presidents. They kidnapped President Aristide. I mean, they use these kind of things. So we have to be able to understand how does we maneuver, how we strengthen it. What President Gaddafi was talking about, a all-Africa army, African development banks all over, you know what I'm saying, economic independence, a real African Union.
Congo, on and on. As a matter of fact, they're launching drones all over Africa right now, and nobody even knows about it. I'm going to take another call. Caller, you're on the air if you're there.
All right.
Now, turn your TV all the way down so you don't get feedback. It would distract you.
Okay.
Got you.
Right.
What I want to say is that it comes from trust. We have to trust our brothers in Africa, and we have to trust each other here so that we can move in this type of unified way. But what happens is there's so much division and so much lack of trust between each other that it's hard to coalesce and gel together. But it can be done, and God willing, it will be done. Otherwise, it'll always be divide and conquer. And thanks a lot.
Yeah, divide and conquer is a very effective tactic of warfare. I mean, you expect your adversary to play fair. I think one of the things we always say is don't blame the player, blame the game. But the game didn't bite off Evander Holyfield's ear. The player did that. Game had nothing to do with that. I mean, the player is the low-down dirty buzzard. You should keep your eye on the player. The game ain't doing nothing. You know.
Keep our eye on Europe.
Right.
Because as this economic crisis gets more and more intense, more and more of these things are going to be happening. Attacks on Africa, the recolonization of Africa, the squeezing of people here in terms of jobs and education and housing and healthcare. All that's interconnected, and we are going to bear the brunt of this economic crisis if we don't really push back. And one of the Achilles heels is reparations. Is something that we need to say. We need to say out loud. On make it as intense as it was in 2001 when we came back from the World Conference Against Racism, or more so. So that on everybody's tongue is reparations. You know
you hot as fire. The phone won't stop ringing. But go on, make your point. I'll get to you, caller, as soon as she finishes her point. When she says she's ready to take a call, then we'll take a call.
I just want, just at this point, to tell people that we're going to be having a forum dealing with Colonel Gaddafi, who was recently assassinated. And we want to do a real thorough analysis of what that was, which way forward for us, and what his contribution was to Africa and to African people.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the connection of Africa, because a lot of people don't realize that the person leading Benghazi, the opposition force, was Mustafa Jalil, is Mustafa Jalil. Mustafa Jalil was, for all intents and purposes, for years, Colonel Gaddafi's second in command. Now, when you look at the two, Colonel Gaddafi was basically ran a secular government and considered himself a part of Africa. Right. Mustafa Jalil is a fundamentalist Islamist who the first thing he did was reinstitute Sharia law. I kind of think you've jumped out of the frying pan into the fire, because you have now given control, you have facilitated control of Libya to a fundamentalist Arab who and I didn't say Muslim, I said Arab. He thinks of himself as an Arab.
And you can't negate what they've been doing to African people.
Correct. They've been murdering black Africans all throughout Benghazi as a result of this coup attempt. Now you have given control of what they say is a capacity of $450 billion a year in oil revenue, in a country so small that it only has 6 million people in total at most, to an fundamentalist Arab who identifies himself as being Arab, not African, in an African nation. And I just think the United States of America didn't really think this one out in terms of their own self-interest, even empirical self-interest. But we got some calls. I'm going to take the call.
You're right.
We got... Hey, I just want to say, one side note that I don't think I'll ever say black African until I hear people say white.
Okay.
But my real calling this time is ask you, how do we begin to parse the complexities of political intrigue? And I know this is a deep question and we can't go into too much here, but I'm just bouncing back on that Ivory Coast situation the sister made reference to. Now I have, and I'm in a position to know that Gbagbo was not a friend of African people. And so it's not always simple black and white. While he talks the talk, he walked a different walk, and I know he had deals that he did himself with the French. So while he talked one conversation, and so bottom line, what I'm asking you is, how do we, and we understand all the political intrigue and manipulation that takes place, how do we have an adult conversation about the complexities? Because things are not always black and white. And how can we get to the point we sit down and discuss, these are the pros, these are the cons, and it's not always the best. This is the best person, this is the worst person. It's just down the middle. I hope I've made some kind of point there, because I want you all to speak back to me on that, and I'm going to hang up.
I think we're doing it. I think, I mean, it's a fact. All black folks don't love black folks,
but I also think that we do have to look at the recolonization of Africa. There are no perfect people. You know what I mean? No president is perfect.
That is correct. That is correct.
But how do you make your nation more independent?
Right.
You know? Right. And if you are fundamentally cutting yourself off from being colonized, then that is a step forward towards self-determination. And somebody might come, people might vote somebody else in after you because they don't like what you're doing. But you at least are not tied to Europe that don't have no interest at all.
Right. And sister, this is not a recent phenomenon. Even in captivity, even in United States captivity, they killed black people. They killed Africans for attempting to learn to read. So knowledge has always been a case of being bold enough to take it, irrespective of what they say the consequences are. And that's the kind of way we're going to have to first gather knowledge by any means necessary and disseminate it no matter what obstacles they put before us. And they will put obstacles before us that are indeed in blackface. But we cannot allow ourselves to be distracted. Once we have a vision and a legitimate desire and emphasis on getting to the truth and the heart of the matter,
and the fundamentals.
Correct. We'll grow exponentially. But we have a couple of more calls. We're running out of time, so I want to get the calls. Callers, you have to be really succinct because we're running out of time, and I want to give the last couple of minutes to my guest.
Okay, first of all, I want to say I love the program, your program, Veronica Kitt's excellent program. You had an excellent guest on, and thank you for analysis. I just was pressed to call real quick because I couldn't disagree with the last caller more. The role that white supremacy plays in the global economics and oppression of the non-white world is something that you just can't ignore, even when it seems as if it's black against black, looking at the underlying role. But I just want to commend you and your guests on your excellent analysis, excellent program. I'm going to be late, so I'm letting you know now because I can't move away from the TV, but keep up the good work, brother.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. Let's get this.
Yes, hello, my brother. How are you?
Hi, my brother. How you doing? Oh, excellent. How you doing?
I just want to make this quick. I have a beautiful poster of President Gaddafi that when my son and we went down on a demonstration. This was back in 1992, and it says national action against U.S.-UN intervention in Libya, hands off Africa, and have his little baby at 15 months old that Reagan and them had bombed his home. And what I'd like to know is, if they could do something like this to Prime Minister Gaddafi, and in my humble opinion, I thought he should have and maybe formed a government in exile, the way a lot of others did, and then when things cooled down, maybe he could have come back.
but I realized, and I thought it was an insult the way they handled his remains. And I saw a report where someone had a nerve to say he wasn't a Muslim. It's downright ridiculous. It just goes to show you how the Western news media treats our heroes and sheroes. And I'd like to end by saying, what's going to happen with his family now? Because they're trying to extradite them into Libya so they can put them on trial. And does the guest have any information on his son? I think his youngest son escaped. Does she have any information on that? And if so, is there any way that we could, because they had a big march up here in Harlem, the December 12th movement, just a few days ago, and most people were pro-Gaddafi. I'll just say that right now. And keep up the good work, Nat. Remember, I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
I love you too, brother. Thank you, Omar.
I'm sorry, I don't know any information about the...
yeah, I think any information that we get at this point is probably spastic, but I can assure you that as we speak, people are like moving heaven and hell to get to the facts of this case, and it will come out.
But the forum that I started to talk about earlier will be on Thursday, November 3rd at Sister's Place Coffee House, which is at 456 Nostrand Avenue in Brooklyn, and the number is 718-398-1766, and we want as many people as possible to come out so we can make a real thorough, like the sister said, analysis and parse all of these different things and see
That's
which
Thursday
way
at
forward.
what time?
Thursday, 6 p.m.
At Sister's Place in Brooklyn. And anyone who has access to a computer, if you don't know how to get to Sister's Place or you don't remember, just go to your Google search engine or whatever search engine you use, type in Sister's Place, and they'll give you a map and an address and everything else.
Thank you.
We're going to try, we only got 2 minutes left, so the calls are going to have to be like 10 seconds apiece. I'm going to take these.
All I want to say is this, right? When Obama was elected, they put Michael Steele in the RNC. They used Obama against Gaddafi and whatnot. And I'm just curious, like, with this divide and conquer thing, it's like now you got these so-called Israelites running around talking about Africans and the North American black man are two different animals, so to speak, species. And it's like, you know, how deep does this divide and conquer thing run?
No, it's an excellent strategy of war, brother. This is war. I mean, if I can get you like that, I'm going to get you like that. I got no problem with that. If you're silly enough to go rope-a-dope, I'm going to rope-a-dope you. You know, but you have to stop expecting your adversaries to play fair. I mean, this whole concept of trying to get them to understand what they're doing is a strange concept. They understand. They've been doing this forever.
They're very clear.
My music is playing. We got to wrap up. I'm going to miss the last call. Caller, if you're going to say something, you got 2 minutes to... Well, no, we hung up. We'll see you next week. Amadi, I want to thank you so much for making this a fabulous show. This sister is spectacular. And we'll see you next week. We'll try to keep up the pressure. Peace.